Welcome to part 2 of building your My First Boat. Now we're going to start to stitch the panels of your boat together with cable ties through the holes that you've drilled in part 1. Remember that the tails of your cable ties need to go on the outside of your hull so that you can tension them properly. Only do a few ties at first and keep them loose. You'll get to tighten them later. While you're tightening the ties, it's really important not to tighten them too much or too little. If you tighten them too much, it can crush the edges of the timber together.
So now we're going to stitch the boat together. Here's how you do it. So, as you can see, we've already done some here. So what you want to do is poke this up through the hole. It can be quite challenging actually. There you go. So you got it up. Now you can't have it like, it can't be the other way around.
The tail has to come down.
Yeah. And then the box goes like that. Oh, it's just sliding on.
That's because the cable tie is the wrong way around. I'll show you what. First you'll be joining part 1 with both of the part 2 planks. As you go up the planks towards the bow, you may need to tip parts 2 upwards so that you can achieve the curve that you need. After that, you'll need to join your part 3 planks onto the outside of the part 2 planks. Then you're going to turn the boat over and use a pair of pliers to start to firm up the ties as you pull them through, being very careful not to crush the edges together. Now you're going to pull the bow together. This bit is the hardest part of the stitching process because you are forming a curved bow from flat planks. You're going to need your grown-up to help you press the planks together to make a bow shape, and then drill and tie the panels together to keep that shape. Start by pulling the bow panels together, making sure the front end of the panels line up precisely to form the right curve. Drill matching pairs of holes wherever you think is appropriate along the bow edge, going right through the 2 planks, and then insert cable ties and pull the bow together firmly.
So we've measured 734 millimeters and we've put a mark down here.
Where did you measure it from?
The aft part. As you will remember, we have labelled that already. So the boat's coming together, but we're going to put in the ribs now. So apart from that, we've also measured up to here. Not sure how many millimeters that is in conversion. Probably like
It's
1
740 millimeters from
740 millimeters from the bow. And I'm guessing though that's where the buoyancy tank's going to be.
Putting in the midframe will strengthen your boat and help to keep her in the right shape, as well as stopping it from collapsing inwards. This is a temporary piece. Remember in the next part not to glue it in, but we'll remind you of that later. First up, you want to measure 734 millimeters from the rear end of part 1 and put a mark, and then measure 740 millimeters from the top end of part 3 and mark. At these marks, press the midframe down into the hull, which will force the panels apart. Hold it in place with 2 clamps to make it plumb and straight in the boat, and then drill 5.5 millimeter holes on either side of the frame at each panel to put your 4.5 millimeter cable ties through. Make sure that the tie ends are on the outside of the hole, just the same as before, and then use pliers to pull the ties tight. The top of the midframe will stick out slightly above the tops of part 3. where the gunnels will rest. Now you're going to drill holes in the transom, part number 8, 10mm in from the edge. Space your holes like you can see in the video. The positions are quite approximate, as you're going to drill matching holes on the aft ends of parts number 1, 2 and 3. Pop the aft end of part number 1 into the cutout part of the transom, and drill the holes in part number 1 to match the 2 holes you've just drilled in part number 8, 10mm from the aft end of part number 1.
So here on the X's, that's where we're going to put the cable ties, but before you put them there, you need to scribe 10mm around all of this with the scriber that we have talked about. And this is the transom, so this will go on the back of the My First Boat. So here, once you've done that, as I said, the holes have all been drilled. And then you got to mark 2 X's, or whatever you want, on there. And that is where we'll stitch the first part of the transom. Transom former, and with that it will get a nice curve in the transom.
Yep. So what are we going to do to keep it there?
We're going to clamp it onto the transom to keep it there.
And then stitch it on.
Yeah, and then we'll stitch the transom on, and then now that when the transom's all stitched on like that, can't go back.
Well done. You have formed a boat-shaped My First Boat. That means you are halfway through your build. See you in part 3 for gluing and filling.